إني أسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. So, oh Allah, I ask you for knowledge that's beneficial. I ask you for knowledge in particular today that's going to help me form a better relationship with my children, with my family members, with the people around me. Knowledge which is going to be of benefit for me both in this world and in the hereafter. And oh Allah, I ask you for rizqan tayyiban, so provision which is tayyib, which is pure, which is goodly, again, which is going to help me excel in my deeds, whether that's risk through knowledge, whether it's financial risk, whether it's risk through relationships, any form of risk. And also, Ya Allah, I ask you of amalan mutaqabbala, deeds which will be accepted. So deeds that are done with sincerity, deeds which are done without show, without ostentation, which are done with pure intent. So on the day of judgment, when I am questioned, Ya Allah, you can accept it from me. Irrespective of what the outcome was, I need to be able to demonstrate and say to Allah, Ya Allah, I did this purely because you commanded me to, and it was purely to please you and not to show anyone. Why are we here? So on the topic of intentions, we are here because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. So I'm here today, Ya Allah, because I need to first of all protect myself from the harm of this world and in the hereafter. And then in return, or secondly, I'm here because I have this intention that I've been given this responsibility to guide my family, to role model my family, and also protect them from the fire. So this is why I am here today. It's purely because I need to fix myself first. I'm so concerned about the welfare of the ummah and the welfare even of my kids that I've forgotten what my destination is. I've forgotten the questions that I will be asked. I'm so worried about the exam which my kids are going to face in school and in the akhirat that I've forgotten. If Allah was to ask me today, are you ready to die? Have you fulfilled all the commands that I've asked of you? It's a difficult question to answer. So, Ya Allah, I'm here today because I have come to fix myself. It's a case of MyTarbiyyah. 3 asks, please, from everyone from these sessions is, first of all, please make notes. Extremely important. There's the whole listening element, which is amazing. So we have words going in through the speakers into our ears and hopefully into our hearts and minds. But the way we reinforce this is through writing, through making notes, because we can then go back and reflect. What did we write? And quite often we discover we've written something that we've not quite understood, which then forces us to go back and listen to the recording again or have a discussion with someone, just to bring that clarity. Then my ask is, once the notes, we've had the note taking, we've listened to the session, we've had a moment to reflect, then please share with your spouses, please share with your family members, have a discussion on the topic to understand. Because always when we listen to different people's opinions, when we share our experiences and elaborate on these topics, it brings more clarity. And those bits of wisdom and knowledge slowly start to become embedded into our hearts and minds. And then it becomes much easier to apply into our daily lives. So please, these 3 asks from the session, if you've not already gotten pen and paper, please take a pen and paper. Also, I understand everyone's busy, but I would humbly request everyone to take a seat, switch off all the distractions, place the phone at a distance away from you. Why? Because we find that when there are messages appearing, we have this tendency to click on the message or see the alert, and that distracts our attention away. So, really focus, have the phone at a distance, and really home in and understand what's being shared, so we can maximize on this. MashaAllah, again, may Allah reward everyone. You've taken the 45 minutes or so out on this busy Thursday evening. So I would really like it to be as beneficial as possible for everyone, and not another case of I attended, listened 45 minutes, been there, done that, and then we continue with our lives. No, I really want everyone to take something back, inshallah. So today's session is around understanding misbehavior in children. So what do we understand by misbehavior? What is misbehavior? Why do kids misbehave? Actually, before we start talking about, misbehavior, I think it's really important we ask ourselves a couple of questions. And what I'm beginning to see, and I've understood this from the work that I do outside of the whole Tarbiyyah element, is I firmly believe that as parents, we need to start learning some essential skills. And one of those skills is diagnostic skills of parenting and nurturing. And the reason why this is really important is because if we don't learn how to diagnose things, especially in the parenting and the teaching arena, life's going to become really difficult. It's going to become really expensive, and it's going to be a real challenge for everyone. And what do I mean by this? I mean, as an example, if I've got a stomach ache, if I have a stomach ache, I've got two options. I can go see a doctor, tell the doctor that, look, this is the problem. I can go to a pharmacy and I can say, look, this is the problem. Please help. Now, what will the doctor do here? So through a series of questions, the doctor will hopefully diagnose the problem and they'll prescribe some medicines. If the doctor isn't able to identify the problem through his questioning skills, he will then direct us to the hospital to go for an X-ray, a blood test, an endoscopy, a CT scan, depending on the situation. But through a series of questioning techniques, through a series of medical tests, laboratory tests, we're hoping that the doctor will come to a diagnosis after which they will be able to treat us. Now, the question is, how did the doctor learn how to diagnose this? It's really simple, right? So they learned it. They took the time out. It's a field that they wanted to specialize in, and they went and became a doctor. They went and, for dentists, for toothache, for example, you go and become a dentist, you will become a pharmacist. Now, quite often as parents, we can diagnose a fever, temperature. Okay, I think that's a fair comment to make. So we can see the child, they're feeling unwell. So we have some basic medical diagnostic skills. And once we're able to diagnose our child with a fever, it's really simple. We know we have to go give Calpol or ibuprofen or strip them down and check their temperature. And if the condition deteriorates, we know that we need to go and refer to a specialist. So that's option one. Option two is, so option one was going to see the doctor. Option two is self-diagnosis. So an example, again, going back to the stomach ache, is I understand my body, I know what my stomach is like, and I know what I've been through. So if I've had a spicy meal late at night, and it's a big, fat, greasy, spicy meal, and then that evening or the following morning, I have a stomach ache, okay? Or, I've got diarrhea, or I've got this really bad indigestion. Do I need to go see a doctor for this? I have the option to, but because I know my own body and I know exactly what I've eaten, I will know how to fix this. So A, stop eating the junk, and B, I need to neutralize those acids. So what am I going to do? Am I going to have a glass of water? Am I just going to starve for the rest of the day? Am I going to take some Gaviscon? Okay. Am I going to take some herbal remedies which I know at home? That's also an option. It's much easier, much simpler. I don't have to wait for a doctor's appointment. And more than likely, because I know my body, I've studied my own body, and I have a very basic understanding of what takes away stomach aches and pains, I'm going to treat it. So life becomes really easy. Now, the problem that the reason why I've given this example is, are we able, the question is this, are we able to diagnose misbehavior or any kind of issue with our child? In most cases, I'm finding that's not the case. Why? Because we haven't studied. Okay, it's very, very simple. Because we haven't studied, and neither did, unfortunately, our education system, our whichever system we've been through, whether it's from a religious perspective, whether it's from a Western education perspective, none of the systems or processes or institutions we've been through, none of them really taught this skill. Okay, and that's why we're suffering. What happens is we will then go and seek advice from a specialist. Now, like the doctor, the specialist will try to find out what's wrong. So they're going to go through a series of questions. But the problem is, it's very hard to diagnose what's wrong with a child for a third party when they haven't lived with the child. They don't know the situation that the child has been, how they're eating, how they're sleeping, whether they're under stress, what kind of emotional torment or respect that they've gone throughout the years. There's an entire history behind human behavior, and it's very hard for anyone to actually put the finger on a problem and say, I can now diagnose this, and this is the problem. No one can do this better than the parents. However, the parents have all the information, but they don't know how to process this information and use it to diagnose the problem and then treat the problem. So children's misbehavior is this prime example. My child, he's not eating. Okay, why isn't he eating? What's wrong? Is the child teething? If the child is young, they're teething. Is that the issue? Do they have, an infection? Are they stressed out? Are they being bullied at school? Are they going through hormonal changes? Who can know this better than a good parent? The doctor's not going to know. The doctor can go through a series of questions because they've been trained, but we here need to learn the diagnostic skills in order to take the entire picture and say, you know what, I know what the problem is over here. So the questions that we need to ask ourselves is, why is my child like this? Why is he making these choices? What have I fed my child through my behavior that's triggered off this response or triggered off this misbehavior attitude? And quite often, it's because we have done something wrong, or we have allowed the child to be exposed to a situation without preparing them, without guiding them, without having those in-depth conversations with them to prepare them for that. And that's why the misbehavior comes about. I mean, there's lots of reasons for misbehavior. I don't want to be judgmental or anything, but I think we need to start thinking in the broader sense. So why are we as parents not learning these diagnostic skills? Why are we not studying? Because it was never really brought onto our list of to-do things as we were growing. But now we've come to a stage where we've realized, I need some help. So we're not doing this because it wasn't really brought to the forefront. B, we don't have time. We're constantly busy with so many other things that we think are important, and we've always pushed this to a side. So the fact that the people that are here today, mashallah, may Allah reward you, clearly this is of great importance to you. And I make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just through the effort that everyone has made today, makes decisions, through kun fayakun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the decisions and makes the children the coolness of our eyes. And he gives us the ability to see the bigger picture and learn those skills so we can anfusakum wa ahlikum nar. So we can save ourselves and we can also save our children from the hellfire by understanding what is it that we are doing wrong and what we need to do to nurture those children. we're seeing growth in GDP. We're seeing growth in technology. We have artificial intelligence. We're seeing a growth in the number of entrepreneurs. We're seeing the growth in the number of businesses that are opening in our high street. We're seeing growth in all these things, but the problem is we're not seeing a growth in the moral fabric of society. I mean, what's our measure over here? And this is something that really needs to concern us. Is the morality of our own morality, the morality of our kids, is it increasing or is it decreasing? Because if it's decreasing, then we're doing something wrong. And quite simply, we're not studying how to tackle this. So again, alhamdulillah, we've made the time to come here today. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to attend more of these sessions, where we can really understand what parenting is about. So, misbehavior. What are the reasons? So there's lots of reasons why children misbehave, but what I'd like to do is just go through 6 of the major reasons which we've identified. I mean, like there's loads, but we find that there's 6 major reasons which are clearly visible to us that is causing a problem in children's behavior. So the first major cause that we see in society, which leads to misbehavior, is that we pamper our children. Okay, so pampering is a major cause here. Now, what is pampering? Pampering means over facilitating our children. Okay, and it also means fulfilling their every wish and desire. Now, unless we don't have a really good grasp of want versus need, as we've discussed in previous sessions, until we don't understand want versus need, we will fall into the trap of pampering and over facilitating our children. So what's pampering? So one part of pampering is to obviously give the child whatever they ask for. And another part of pampering is to take the side of our child all the time. Okay, so it's essentially to unduly favoring the child. So taking their side even if they're wrong. So this also falls under pampering. What's over facilitation? So over facilitation is when we don't let the child do something which they are fully capable of. And instead, we will go and do that task for them. So an example can be making up the bed, making a cup of tea, going to get a glass of water, picking up the rubbish. It's a case of, no, it's okay, I'll do it. You're my young child, I love you so much. Okay. Helping them with the homework, helping them clean. So over facilitation it's a big problem. Okay. The second thing is accepting every wish. So accepting every wish of the child. So whatever they ask for, we always give it to them without considering whether it's actually good or bad for them. Why? It's because we want to keep their happiness in mind. Okay, so our claim of love is so strong that whatever you ask for, I'm going to give it to you. Not thinking about, is this a want or a need? Is this good for you? Is this bad for you? We just go and fulfill every single need. Now, I think what we have to understand is there's nothing wrong with entertaining your child. There's nothing wrong with keeping them happy. Okay, but to fulfill each and every wish, this is poor parenting, and we have to understand this. So if whatever the child wants, if it's really good for them, then we should be able to accept that, and we should be able to provide it. Okay, it's something good, and if they're demanding something, then we need to give it to them. That's no problem because it's beneficial. But if what they're demanding is not good, then we have to review this, understand it's not good, and then we have to be in a position to say no. If something is not beneficial for the child and they're insisting on getting it, the question is, should they be allowed to get it or not? Now, many parents, what happens is they surrender. So when the child demands something, they'll surrender And when they're persistent and they keep on asking, eventually the parents give in. Oh no, okay, fine, take it. You know, so what does the child learn from here? The child learns that, okay, I know this wasn't good for me, but if I keep on asking, my parents will get tired because they can't be bothered, and I will eventually get what I'm asking for. Okay, even though the parents know it's not good for them, and the child may know as well. I mean, if it's a young child, they may not know, but certainly an older child knows it's not good for me, but I want it because this is my desire. So here my nafs has unfortunately overpowered me. The wasawis of shaitan is there. I will get it if I just be persistent. So similarly over here, if the child has a fight with another child, okay, so we're talking about favoritism over here. If the child has a fight with another child, are we just going to simply stand up with our child without investigating, okay, what's gone wrong over here? Was it your fault? No, it's my child. He must be right. I'm going to take his side. But what we have to understand, it can be anyone's mistake, right? Your child can also be wrong like anyone else. But we're unable to view this. Why? Because we're so blinded by this love. So this whole favoritism, being blinded by love, this gives the child the wrong message. What it says is, I can be wrong, but my parents will always stick up for me. So it's okay to be wrong, but as long as I have my parents behind my back, as long as I have the upper hand through my parents, or, we have the bigger stick, fine, I can go ahead and do it. Now, if you just start thinking a bit bigger, can you see how this relates, this undue favoritism, this bigger stick policy, having someone behind you to always back you up? Can you see where this is a problem on a country level when that child grows to be a leader, right? I think we can understand where we're going with this. So these three situations combined, so favoritism, undue favoring, over facilitation, and accepting every single wish. This is a case of pampering, and it's no good. Okay. So that's the whole pampering issue. Then we have an issue where children have never heard no in their lives because every wish has been fulfilled. Now, a child who has never heard the word no will never realize whether his desires, his demands are beneficial, whether they're good or not. Okay, is it good? Is it bad? They don't know. Why? Because whatever they ask for, they've got it. Again, this is going to be a really big problem later on in life, because the moment the child hears a no from a cousin, or maybe from the parents later on, or from the school teachers, or in the workplace, it's going to cause emotional turmoil. It's going to be a really big problem. So the child has to hear the word no. If it's something good and essential, yes. But if it's something bad, it's not a need, it's your want. It's out of our financial budget and it's not good enough. It's something which is going to cause a problem. Then there has to be a principle-based no. That is the rule that we need to follow. Do we have those same rules for us? Right. This is the big issue over here. Because we don't role model the same rules for ourselves, but we demand that our kids follow those principles, there's a big disconnect here. And if I was to use this in an Islamic sense, may Allah protect us, it's hypocrisy. And the children can see this. And that's when behaviors change. Like, how can you have it, but I can't have it, but you're doing it? If it's so bad, why are you having it? Why can't I have it? Okay. This is where relationships break down. This is where we then start getting double standards. So in front of person X, the child is like this, but in front of person Y, the child is like this. Why? Because that's what they've seen from us. So one of the major reasons why kids misbehave is because of pampering. Okay. Now we have to look at why do we pamper our children? So see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instilled a lot of love in the heart of every single mother and father for his child. And it's an amazing, it's a great blessing that we have for our children. And I make dua Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases the love between, parent and child. And the reason why it's so amazing is because that love is actually what's enabled us to make those sacrifices for them. The love which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in our hearts and minds, and similarly in the hearts and minds of our kids, that's why there's this strong bonding. That's why we will have sleepless nights to look after them. Okay? So this love is an amazing blessing which has allowed us to do lots of good. Otherwise, they would have struggled. However, if we lack the knowledge and the wisdom when it comes to love, or if we are emotionally immature, or we're unstable, or to put it in a slightly in stronger words, if we are victims of emotional extremism and we have temperament issues, we become emotional really easily, then this can have some serious consequences. So being emotional, it's not bad, but becoming emotional on matters which don't require emotional responses, that's not good. That's a big problem. If you become emotional for the wrong reason, and then once you become emotional, you find it very hard to normalize yourself, or it takes a very long time to overcome that emotional instability. That's a serious issue. So if we're getting offended easily and we have temperament issues, then what do you think is happening in the child of a mind? Okay, this is going to cause a problem. Wisdom and love. So if we don't have wisdom, but we only have love. So again, children become emotionally unstable. And then that love, that emotion becomes a reason of pampering. Okay, so we understand what pampering is, but why do we pamper? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this love, but because our lack of knowledge, because of our lack of wisdom, because we have not spent times with ourselves, we've not spent time with ourselves to work on our own understanding of the world. We've not looked ourselves in the mirror that why am I becoming so emotional? Like, why am I getting so upset over such a small thing? Okay. This emotional instability within ourselves makes us do irrational things, and then we start loving exceedingly, which causes pampering, which then becomes a cause of children's misbehavior. Okay. So, we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the ability to love with wisdom and with knowledge, and through a process of self-reflection where we can really work on ourselves. So pampering, what we're saying is pampering is a major reason of spoiling our children in our society. Another example which I'd like to give you is if a child asks for a gadget and you give it to them, then the child wants to go to someone's house or a party or an event, and you let them go. And then the child asks for some money and we give it to them. Now we have a child who's got what he wanted, got lots of money, and he's got all the freedom. And, we're doing whatever the child is asking. As I've mentioned before, what will happen, or how will the child react if he hears a no? Or how will the child react if there comes a time where I am unable to fulfill your need? I'm unable to fulfill your desire because I don't have the financial freedom. I don't have, or we simply are not in a place where you can go to a party because of the situation around you. You're on holiday, you've gone to a different country. We don't have access to the luxuries that we had before. This is where children then will begin to really struggle. And quite often, moving away from parenting, if we look at children in a professional environment, in the working environment, in town, etc., they break down. They don't know how to deal in stressful situations in the workplace or at other people's houses. They just don't know how to adapt because they're just so used to getting things the way they want. This is especially a really big problem in kids who then get married. When they get married, that daughter is no longer a princess. The daughter has become a wife. She has become a daughter-in-law. She's become a sister-in-law. She's become an auntie. And all of a sudden, the freedom that she had is no longer there. So pampering here has many, many effects which go into, um, yeah, it affects everything. I mean, I'm sure, we can think of lots of examples within our own families and in society where this is causing a really big issue. So on the topic of pampering then comes freedom. So what is freedom? Freedom is also something which we need to understand. So freedom is it's not something bad. It's our responsibility as parents to protect our children, also give them the freedom to do certain things without over facilitating. So they need to have that freedom. We have to protect their faith. We have to protect their morals, their psychology. We have to protect their physical and mental well-being from every possible harm. But sometimes, again, the children will ask for something which isn't beneficial for them. They're asking for that freedom of movement. They're asking to go to a certain place or do something. Freedom of thought, freedom of expression. Okay. Unfortunately, we are not free slaves. We are abd of Allah. We are slaves to Allah. So if we're slaves to Allah, we are slaves to a system. The only thing or the only creatures that are truly free are animals. They are free to roam around the earth and do excrement. Humans don't do this. Humans have rules that they stick to. So we have to introduce those rules into our lives, and also our children through discussion have to understand freedom is the talk of town. We're not free. We are bound by some, rule, some law. Now, whether we choose that law to be a divine law, whether we choose that law to come from the government or from family or culture or school or the police or wherever, we are bound by some laws. So we're not free. And there's a limit as to what we can do within the boundaries of freedom that we have been given. So again, freedom without knowledge, without wisdom, can turn into a problem. Okay. So that entire sort of thing is pampering. Okay. So in pampering, we looked at freedom, we looked at over facilitation, we looked at love. So that's the first reason. Then we have to look at the second reason why children misbehave, and it's because of the lack of confidence and love that children have. So in other words, we can say that the emotional needs of a child are not satisfied. Okay. So there's many children who have parents, they've also got siblings and they've got cousins, but they're not trusted or loved. It's possibility to have this amazing network of people around you, but still a child can feel, I'm not trusted, I'm not loved. Adults can feel this as well. So this means that when a child isn't shown any trust or respect, the child will not have a good bonding or relationship, especially with the parents. Okay. So, and I can tell you something interesting over here. And there's two scenarios. So one is there's a child, the child is being pampered, but there is a lack of deep relationship or bonding. So you accept his every demand, you get him everything that he wants, you fulfill all his wishes, but we don't trust the child. I mean, is that possible? If that child was to be asked whether his mother and father trust him, then the child will say no. They fulfill all my wishes and desires, but I don't feel my parents respect me or trust me. It's a possibility, right? So it's essential that we understand how to trust a child, how to respect them. This will help develop that deep relationship and bonding with them. How is that going to be beneficial? So inshallah, we'll address this some other time, the levels of relationship and bonding and what the fruits of having a strong bond are. A question actually, which I'll probably leave everyone with, which I'd like you to make a note of is, I'd like everyone to reflect here and ask ourselves, how do we break the trust of a child? How was our trust broken when we were children or even as adults? When, what are the situations or instances where our trust was broken? So I think that's a good bit of homework and a piece of reflection, which it'd be interesting to hear people's comments on that. So going back to the children. So when the children, when they don't get the respect and the trust, then these children get disturbed. And in this situation, children become aggressive. They become non-cooperative. And sometimes they will do something intentionally or unintentionally to hurt others. So it can be physical violence, it can be verbal violence, and a lot of this stems from emotional needs not being fulfilled. So here we have to understand that every human being yearns and is thirsty for a relationship. A child who is hungry for love and his hunger for love hasn't been satisfied, it's not been fulfilled by the parents through hugs, through the kisses, through spending time together, through trust. This child will eventually act in a very strange way. The child will become very, very disturbed. And this is the whole diagnostic element that we were talking about initially. We need to be able to diagnose this through one lens is the lens of love. Has my child's emotional needs been fulfilled? So the child sometimes they'll respond by not cooperating, they'll misbehave, and they'll hide things, they'll break things intentionally, or they'll do things and not share that information with you, right? So this second scenario is that we're pampering the children, but we're still starving them of love, we're starving them of trust, we're not giving them the respect that they're due, which causes these issues. So the other scenario is you give a child a tough time, we don't fulfill any of their wishes, we're really strict with them. So it's no, no, no to everything. Now, at the same time, the child then becomes scared because of the fear factor that we've instilled in them. We've been extremely strict. We have temperament issues. So this child is not getting his wishes and desires, but also there's the whole fear factor, and as a result, the child begins to lie. So obviously, in this situation as well, the emotional needs have not been satisfied. So again, the child will not develop a deep relationship with us. And as a result, because we've not been able to protect our children from our poor temperament, because we've not been able to protect our child from our misunderstanding and from the impurities of our nafs. That's essentially what it is. Because we've not worked on our nafs, we've not worked on our own character. That polluted nafs is then having an impact on the child. And as a result, the result will be polluted actions coming out of the child. Okay. And then on top of that, we're pampering as well. So how do we expect this child to behave? I mean, in simple terms, if so I think another way to put it is it's not important to fulfill every wish of our child. Rather, we can only fulfill the wishes which are good and beneficial. And for that, we have to make sure that we protect the izzat-e-nafs. We respect the child, their self-esteem, their dignity. We need to maintain that. We need to respect it, as we discussed in the last session. Okay. We shouldn't be disrespectful, even if the child is asking for something which you can't fulfill, or if they're persistent. We cannot lower our standards or drop our guard and become disrespectful at no expense. At no expense. So how do we do this? First of all, for example, a child here says, I want to go to my friend's house. Okay. And what do we do here? We have to start off by saying, okay, like I understand you need to go to your friend's house. However, where you're going, we have to make the judgment. Is it something beneficial where he's going to? Is it something that we agree on in principle? Okay, is it beneficial? Is it a good decision to go out this late at night? So we review the request and we say, I understand you want to go. And unfortunately, based on the principles that we agreed on, that we've had a discussion with, like I'm really sorry. I know it's a really tough decision. So it's a tough decision for you to comprehend and understand, but you can't go. I'm sorry, I can't allow it. Now here, what's going to happen? The child's going to retaliate. Oh no, please. He's going to show some emotional instability. But here we have to stay calm and collected, and we have to say, look, I love you so much. I love you so much that I can't risk you going to this place because it's not beneficial for you. If I was to let you go, then that's a sign of a weakness in my love. Okay, so we have some principles that we abide by, and it's because of my love. I don't want you to go over there, and I'm not going to allow it. And we have to stick by that. How do we have this conversation? Very calm, very collected, without showing emotional instability, without being aggressive, without raising our voice and slamming our fists. The child can do whatever they want. Okay, so they can have a tantrum, you know, they can do that, but we are not to accept because we've already agreed on a principle. So if the child, shows some emotional instability there, one thing we can do is go forward and hug the child and say, look, I still love you so much. Like I love you, I respect you, but I'm really sorry I can't. I just can't. Okay. We have to remain firm. We have to show that we still love the child, even though, as we've mentioned before, tum jaise bhi ho mere ho. I love you no matter what. Okay, I'm not going to let you make a mistake. And bring the scenario on yourself. If I was to go and I decided I'm going to go out this evening and I'm going to have a cigarette with my friends, or I'm going to go drink alcohol, will you let me go? The answer is going to be no. No, but I really want to go and I'm your father. You're going to stop me, right? Why? Because you love me. But I can turn around and say, look, but I'm really addicted to alcohol. I need that alcohol. I need that cigarette. What are you going to do? So the child will, say, no, Dad, I'm not going to let you go. It's wrong. I'm going to try to stop you in whatever way, shape, or form because it's not good for you. And I know it's not good for you in this world. It's certainly not good for you in the hereafter. So what's that message? What message are we then sending to the child? That similarly, my son, I don't want you to go there because I know the harms of that place. Oh, no, 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 Dad, but you don't understand. No, I do understand. So let's just agree to disagree over here, but I'm really sorry I can't let you go. Okay. So maintain the respect and carry on with the conversation. So sometimes, again, the child can whine and cry and go to mum. So here we need the parents on board. Okay, it's a principle that we've agreed on. This is why I always ask, please, our spouses need to come on board to these sessions to understand. If we're not on the same page, if we're not singing from the same hymn sheet, then the child got a no from dad, but he knows he's going to get a yes from mum. So then children will learn to play the parents off each other. So here we have to come under one banner, one principle. This is the rule. Okay, so we have to really keep that in mind. So that's the two reasons. That's the first two reasons. The third reason is temperament. Many parents themselves are unfortunately very ill-mannered. Their temperaments and behaviors are unacceptable. Okay. The children notice the tone of their father when he talks to the mother. Similarly, children notice the tone of the mother when she talks back to the father or she's speaking to family members. Both father and mother, children notice the tone. They notice the expressions. They even notice our tone and expression with strangers. So they notice our behavior. And children know that this behavior, it's my dad, right? I love him. I'm going to follow him. Why is that the case? Because this is the natural love which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the child. The child will follow the father blindly. The child will follow the mother blindly up to a certain age. But the moment the relationship breaks down because of actions that we've done, that's when children will then go and seek other role models. So, as an example, if the father, I'm driving my car, I have an accident. My reaction to the person who's bumped into my car, the child is noticing. So here, if I'm going to be aggressive and I'm going to be shouting, that's what the child is learning. That when someone bumps into you, it's okay to swear. When someone bumps into you, it's okay to raise your voice, irrespective of whether the person was at fault or not, irrespective of their age. Okay, so our aggression is subconsciously, it's transmitted to the child. And the children will see this. How are we towards other family members? How emotionally stable or unstable are we with other family members? So that emotional instability also is then transmitted to our children. So they then also start adopting the same behaviors with those relatives or with that uncle or auntie or those neighbors. Okay. So this also leads to misbehavior. Our own misbehavior causes misbehavior in our children as well. And we shouldn't think of misbehavior as a genetic problem. Okay, we see, oh no, this child he was just born like this. That's completely wrong, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Muslims, not just Muslims, sorry, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created insan on a good fitra, okay, and on a good disposition. But it's through the experiences that a child ends up changing his religion. Through experiences and the bad experiences that the child ends up making those wrong decisions and misbehaving. Okay, so it's not a genetic problem. In fact, it's a trait which is transmitted to our children through role modeling and through their experiences. Okay, so then there's a question about handling children's misbehavior. So, I mean, that's the question, right? How do I handle children's misbehavior? But here, our focus needs to be come back to, how do I handle my own misbehavior? That's the real question. How do I talk to people? Okay, what's my tone and choice of words? Do I hurt people with my choice of words? So, if we were to measure ourselves, our best behavior is when people feel respectful, they feel safe, they feel trusted, and there's always good intentions behind it. But there's another issue. So many people have an amazing heart, they've got these fantastic intentions, but somehow they're very rough and harsh with their tongue. And they hurt others with the tone of their voice. But they are good people. I mean, genuinely, if you spend time with these people, they're good people. But it's that tongue and it's that tone which completely destroys the relationships. So this is one of the major reasons why children adopt a similar temperament to their parents, which unfortunately can be quite destructive. So that's the third major factor that we have to understand that leads to child's misbehavior. The fourth factor is stress. So children here, we have to understand are children are under stress. They can be under stress. Like in many cases, what we find is the child was very bright. They were happy. They're very cooperative, very polite with everyone. Everything was was going well with them. And then apparently, um, at that time, there was no inappropriate behavior. And if you take it a step further, if we look at the parents, then the parents didn't pamper as well. They gave the child the trust and the respect, and all the emotional needs were fulfilled. The behavior was amazing. So what we've mentioned before, those three reasons, so all those were perfect. Okay. But somehow, when a child starts going to school, or the school changes, or you move into a different area, the child experiences a lot of stress and competition. And all of a sudden, the behavior changes. Okay. Now, what's happening here is the child has gone to a system where he's not able to express himself, or his self-respect is not safe. This is what we find. Okay. The child is often in these new environments, they're humiliated, they're embarrassed. So the child here feels insecure and uncomfortable. So there's a burden on the child's mind that how am I going to face that individual again at school tomorrow? That's stress which is building up. There's also the burden of exams. Or there's too much work and I'm falling behind and I'm going to get a detention. I'm going to upset my parents who've been absolutely amazing. So here, there's a lot of stress because we're expecting high performance from the child, and we're actually demanding that from him. So not only are we demanding that, the school is demanding it, society at large is demanding it. We've got this whole grading system. If you don't come first, you're going to be a loser, you're going to be a failure. In whose eyes? In whose eyes? Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have, first, second, third. So our entire compass here is wrong. So anyway, this can be an Islamic school, this can be a religious school, it can be a non-religious school, but the child is under stress. That is when we find that the children start clashing with their elder or younger brother or sister. It even goes that they start clashing with their parents. Misbehavior kicks into place. So he may not be showing any reaction in school, but at home you can see his reaction and his behavior is getting a bit unpleasant. So we have to watch out and see if the child is under stress. Diagnosis. Okay, we really have to be able to diagnose. And how will we know this? We have to be a part of our children's life. Now, there's two ways to be part of children's life. One is to be inquisitive, always questioning them. That has the opposite effect. If we constantly question our child, what's going on, what's in your bag, what happened, too many questions breaks the relationship down. It should be a case of I am actively involved in your life because you are willing to share your stories with me. Why? Because we have that bonding and relationship. Why? Because in the past, when the child has declared to the parents that, oh, mum, dad, I did so and so at school, the parents were able to behave or react in a very pleasant manner that really, no problem, we'll sort it out. Okay, you broke the window, you got detention, you got detention for swearing. It's okay, no problem, right? Let's discuss it. So why were you swearing? It's okay, these things happen. Do you understand why people swear? Do you understand the effects of these words? How does Allah feel about this? You know, how do the angels on our shoulders, what do you think they did? Having that conversation makes the child feel safe that, what, my parents, because of their emotional instability, because of their poor temperament, there was no outrage. And I actually felt quite comfortable sharing a personal problem with them. So naturally, then, when a child is being bullied at school, they're under stress, they will come and share this with us. Similarly, we need to be able to diagnose this and say, you know what, don't be worried. If you're not going to get a first, it's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, so we need to spot those signs of stress. So that's a fourth reason. The fifth reason of bad behavior, especially in children who are under the age of, I'd say, sort of, 8 or 9, is um, is physical needs have not been fulfilled. So what does that mean? Children are very active. Okay. And they're especially active if you've been giving them the wrong foods. If they've got plenty of sugar in their system, that physical um, energy needs to be fulfilled. They need to release it somewhere. Is it through football? Is it through running, spending time with the parents, going out? The physical needs will not be fulfilled in front of a PlayStation. It will be fulfilled in front of a PlayStation if they're going to smash the screen out of anger. And there's been cases of this. Okay. We have to understand children have physical needs that need to be fulfilled, and they need to be doing at least 30 minutes of physical activity, strenuous physical activity that causes a sweat every single day. This is the physical need of a child, and if that's not fulfilled, they will become grumpy. They become irritable. They'll start jumping off the sofa. They'll start jumping onto the table. They'll start throwing things against the wall. And we think that the child is misbehaving. The child is not misbehaving. The child just doesn't know how to release the energy. And because they're confined in these four walls, because we've pampered them with a PS4, with all these gadgets, that's not what they need. It's what they want, but it's not their physical need. So the child, maybe as part of physical needs, the child may be hungry. The child may be sleep deprived. Okay, it might be the child's feeding time, and we find the child starts crying and throwing a tantrum. So again, we need to be able to diagnose this. And alhamdulillah, most parents I feel are, the moment they see their child, okay, they say, we hear this all the time, it's his food time, we better feed him quickly. Okay. So alhamdulillah, on that element, it's good. But we need to, again, go deeper. Is there physical activity, especially in this day and age, is that being fulfilled? Now, one of the reasons why children misbehave or demonstrate these sort of behaviors is because they don't have the vocabulary and they don't have the emotional or the intellectual ability to express themselves. Okay, they don't know how to control themselves. So they will give a response which they feel is appropriate to just relieve them of that stress. Okay, relieve them of that physical deprivation. So we have to monitor. We have to monitor their physical activity. We have to monitor their sleep. We have to monitor their food. We need to monitor, are they becoming restless? If they're becoming restless, okay, why? What is it that I fed them? What's happening? Maybe they're feeling restless because they've not had some bonding time. I mean, one of the things, I was reading a study, the oxytocin that's released when a father plays with the child is very different to the oxytocin that's released when a mother plays with the child. Okay, so there is that element where kids need to spend time, and fathers need to understand they need to spend some physical activity with their children, because it releases oxytocin and it makes them a lot happier, and it fulfills their needs where they no longer have to misbehave. So that's the fifth factor. So the sixth factor, and what's that? The sixth factor we say is if the child has faced some level of injustice. Okay, so if the child here, if the child has been teased or if they've been humiliated, okay, when the child or even adults, when they are teased or when they're humiliated, it hits them. It hits them really hard. Adults are expected to, because of their mental matureness, to deal with that situation. Okay, so again, how do you deal with humiliation? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. If we're not dealing with it too well, then we need to work on ourselves. But a child who doesn't have that mental capacity, but he's being teased. See, we feel that because the child doesn't have the mental capacity to express themselves, they probably don't have the mental capacity to understand that they're being teased. No, they do. Children do understand teasing. Children do understand humiliation. The problem is they're not able to express it in explicit terms like we do as adults. And their method of expressing this is through a strong reaction, misbehavior. Okay, so if a child is treated unfairly, then he will react. And that reaction, again, it can be swearing, it can be not listening to you, not having food, refusing to do things, refusing to go to school. Okay, so we have to again monitor what is it that's happening. Are they being teased in the home? Are we as parents teasing our kids? Sometimes for fun and games, we feel it's okay, right? But what we always say is, going back to the poem that we shared a few weeks ago, it would be interesting to know what you would do if the Prophet came to visit you. Would you tease your kids in the same manner? It's a question to ask. Would I use the same language? Would I, have those cheeky games with them? What we class as cheeky. How would the Prophet feel? So if we wouldn't do it when the Prophet was here, then we shouldn't do it ourselves. Okay, because it is having an impact. So, in a nutshell, I'm just wary of time as well. So that's some of the major reasons why children misbehave. Okay, those 6 reasons, and we really need to go and reflect on this. What's the solution? The solution is, I think hopefully I've given some pointers over there, but we need to go and reflect and really observe ourselves and just sit and observe the child and be able to diagnose. Okay, diagnose and think, okay, maybe I need to change this. A lot of these behaviors, if they are in our children, can they be reversed? Of course they can. It's not something which they're doing and that's it. No, there is treatment available. The treatment is I need to change myself first. Because the moment we start to change ourselves, and the moment we start to come into a deep relationship with our children where they feel loved, they feel respected, okay, we maintain their self-esteem, we give them unconditional love. What does that mean? The child or any individual, you know, if I am on good terms with um, someone outside of the family, like a friend, if I'm on good terms with them, and if I was to ask, my car's broken down, can you please come and help me? Because of that mutual love and respect that we have, because of that bond and relationship that we've developed, my friend will be prepared to sacrifice his sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning and he will come out to help me change the tire. Okay. Why? Because the love is there. But that's a love between like a friend, like essentially two strangers. There's no blood relationship. Here, there is a blood relationship. Then the relationship is so strong that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put that love between the father and child, the mother and child. That love is so strong. If we are able to develop and work on this love, what will happen is when we ask our children to stop, they will listen. They will listen. It's impossible for them to not listen. And if they don't listen, we need to understand, okay, why? We need to be able to diagnose. Maybe I've gone wrong somewhere. Maybe I've not had a deeper conversation about these principles. So as an example, wants and needs. Do we have that relationship where we can sit down with our children and say, the example I gave before, is it possible that I want something that is not good for me? What do you feel? How would mom and dad feel? How would Allah feel? How would the Prophet feel? So if they're not going to feel good about it, but I want it, does that mean I need to follow my desires and go ahead with that? No, here I need to stop myself. Okay. So can we have those deeper conversations? And the stronger the relationship is, the more the easier it becomes to have those conversations, and then the lessons from those conversations are turned into action. So my desire becomes your desire. This is what happened with the Sahaba. The Sahaba's desire was no longer their desire. Their desire was, O Prophet of Allah, what is your desire? Your desire is my desire. What you like is what I like. What you hate is what I hate. And that came through that relationship and bond which Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had developed, built with his Sahaba. They felt safe. They felt respected. They weren't pampered. If pampering was the solution, look at the example of Hazrat Fatima radiallahu anha. She asks for a helper in the house. You know, oh father, I'm getting tired, I'm carrying these water sacks, etc. Um, but what does the father here says? The father here says no in a very polite manner.
Yes.
So when the father here says no in a polite manner, what does the daughter do? Does she throw a tantrum? Absolutely not. No, because the love and respect between the father and the daughter was so strong. And we hear from the seerah, when the daughter would walk into the room, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would stand up out of respect. We only stand up out of respect for someone who earns more than us, who's older than us. What crime has that child, or what crime has my child done that I'm no longer respecting them? What's the harm in standing up? Again, it's role modeling. If we can stand up for our child, we can offer our seat. The child automatically will say, no, no, Baba, it's okay, you sit down. Okay. So there's a certain we really need to have a look at Seerah in depth. It wasn't just the du'as of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam or the Quran which caused this relationship. It was the physical behavior. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam took the Quran and the Sunnah, he had the Sunnah, he practically demonstrated love, respect. What are the two qualities which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had before he became a prophet? Even the kuffar used to call him is as-Sadiq and al-Amin. So even before prophethood, it was his nature to be as-Sadiq and al-Amin. Why can't we be as-Sadiq and al-Amin with our kids? We need to be. And if we're not, we're going to have these situations where children will misbehave. But again, it's my tarbiyyah. Most of the 6 points that I've mentioned actually comes back to us. I need to have a look at myself, have an introspection. If our spouses are with us, have that discussion. What is it that I'm doing wrong? Again, our relationship with our spouse should be where I can ask my spouse, do you think I'm teasing my children? Do you think we're teasing our kids? Do you think we're over pampering? Do you think we have this emotional instability? Maybe we're having an argument, and in the argument we're becoming irrational, and that's what's affecting the kids, right? So I think we need to stop this. So there needs to be that level of conversation through the relationships that we've worked on with our spouses and our kids, where then we can, inshallah, take this further. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to practice on what we've heard today. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you from my shar. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our kids from our shar. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the entire society from our shar. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the wisdom and the ability to really work on ourselves and do our own tazkiyah, to purify our own nafs. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our children the coolness of our eyes. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the coolness of our children's eyes, and make us the coolness of our parents' eyes. And inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make us all the coolness of his Prophet's eyes on the day of judgment, where we will need his intercession, and that's only going to come through following the prophetic example and really introspecting and having a look at how we conduct ourselves. Jazakallah khair for attending. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.